Welcome back to another video, continuation of a DIY portable power station build that we're going to be working on for the next few months. And I say months because I'm still waiting on a few parts to come in from out of the country, and they could take up to July, at least from what I'm getting on the shipping information. But today we're going to carry on with part of it, which we can do without having all those other components here. And what we're going to do is build a battery tray. So let's get right into it. For our build, here are a few tools and materials that I'll be using to make a battery bracket. But this can hopefully give you an idea of what you can use to make your own bracket, keeping in mind that the goal here is to make this on a budget, not to actually buy a manufactured battery bracket. So let's get right into it. The first thing I'm going to use here is this right angle. It's aluminum, and you can get this from Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, True Value, just about any hardware store. You can buy some of this by the foot, but if they don't sell it by the foot, most of the times they'll have it in 4-foot sections for just a few bucks, under 10 bucks. Sometimes they'll be $7, also depending on where you live. But this is aluminum, and we're going to be using a ruler to take some measurements. We have a pencil to make our marks, and at least we're not going to leave a mess whenever this is all done. So let's use a pencil. We're going to have our battery and well, this I'm going to use it as a battery strap, but this actually was a strap given to me at IKEA when I purchased some furniture. They threw in 4 of these for free. So in case you have come across these, I have about 8 of these just laying around and just found a way to use them now. I can use it as my battery hold down. I have my battery, of course, because I'm going to use it to take measurements. And finally, I'm going to be using a Dremel tool to make my cuts to shape this bracket. But you can also use a hacksaw if you don't have access to a Dremel tool. So let's get right into it. For our battery, there's no need to use a ruler because we have our battery here with us. So I'm going to use this right angle aluminum to build somewhat of a rectangle that will wrap around the battery so that we can set it down inside of that channel and then strap it down to be able to replace it whenever we need to. I thought initially about using some of this duct strap to hold it down with some bolts, but after thinking about it, I want it to be able to be something that can be easy to change, not need any tools to replace the battery. So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to do is obviously take our measurement. Let me try to get within the view of the camera. Here we go. Alright, so we're going to take our battery and pretty much butt it up to the corner. And now that it's butted up to the end, we'll take our pencil and make a mark horizontally and vertically. There we go. There are our first 2 marks. Now since this is going to wrap around the battery, all we have to do is just rotate it 90 degrees, butt it up to that line that we just made. And now we can go ahead and make another line on the other end of the battery. A horizontal line, a vertical line. Again, we move it 90 degrees over to the right. Set it in. Make our marks again. Finally, roll it one last time, 90 degrees to the right, and mark it. now that we've marked it, we'll go ahead and mock it up just to make sure everything's right. This measurement here is intended to cover the back part of the battery. We'll call this the front. And now this part is going to cover the right side of the battery. This part will cover the front side of the battery. And finally, the left side of the battery. And these two ends will touch each other when it's all done. So now we know that this final piece is scrap. So we'll go ahead and put an X on it just to make sure we don't forget which part we're keeping and which part we're throwing away. Which, by the way, don't throw this away when you're done using it. There's always a use for this, and this will easily wipe off with a wet paper towel. So now the next thing we're going to do is mark some right angles to cut at each of these bends so we can fold it together and create our frame. But here's a little trick that we can use in the event of you not having a speed square or something to make the right angle with. So first of all, what we're going to do is measure the width of the plane that we're going to make the 90-degree angle at. So first thing we're going to do is measure here, and let's see if I can get it in the camera. Alright, try to get it up close to you. There we go. We have 1.5 inches. So now we're going to use this 1.5 inches to measure where we're going to cut our angle for this to bend correctly. So first, we're going to count 1.5 inches to either side of our straight line right here. And on the last cuts, we're just going to measure 1.5 inches in and mark right there. That'll give us our spot for our 45 degrees. So we'll make the first one right at the edge, and hopefully this lighting isn't putting a glare into the screen. But trust me, I am measuring 1.5 inches from the edge, which is the width of this bottom plane. So here we go. Let's get some lead out. There we go. 1.5 inches. And now we're going to do this for each of these. Now that we've made all of our markings, all we have to do is draw a line from, and let's try to get the glares out of there. Okay, that helps right there. So that point right here where our line goes to the center, we're gonna draw a line from there to the bottom of this 1.5 inch measurement. Let's see here. There we go. From this 1.5 inch measurement to the tip here. We're going to do that again for each of these. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Now that we've made all the measurements and markings that we're gonna need for our bracket, our battery mount, then now we need to do the hardest part, which is transferring all of those lines to the back side. So I'll do that off camera, but basically what you're gonna do is come out to the marks and then draw on the edge here and make your marks all over again. This time so you can be on the back of it. It'll make your cuts a little easier. And I'm gonna say for my application I won't do those lines because I have a Dremel tool. So the Dremel tool has that flexibility to get in there without having to draw the lines in the back. I'll just lock this down somewhere and then make my cuts. Marking all of these, and then I went ahead and cut these with the Dremel tool. I took care of that outside in the garage just because I didn't want to make a mess in here. But I ended up using these Dremel cutting wheels, and I made all of these cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cuts with this one wheel, and you see how it shrunk quite a bit, but it made it. So now it's my first time ever doing this, so I have no experience in making battery brackets, but that's kind of the whole reason for DIY, right? So I think this is gonna work here. So I'm pinching it here on a vise. If you don't have a vise, I think anything with a hard edge would be fine, kind of like the edge of a desk or a table. Obviously you don't want to scratch up your stuff, so it's best to have a vise or something that you're not afraid to damage. So let's try this. What I'm thinking of doing is just applying pressure. Since this is aluminum, it should bend fairly easily. I'm just not sure how the back of it is going to do this lower side, because the vise is only holding it. Say, however, the thickness of the vise is, which is about maybe 5/8 of an inch. So I'll see what it does. If it's looking a little strange, then I may change my approach. But I'm going to go ahead and try it like this now. So here we go. Looks to be working. So I'm going to slide it out a little bit. Now that it went ahead and took that angle, see if we can get it to close here. Well, went a little too easy. I didn't think it was going to be that easy. So there we go. We have our first bend. And now let's look at the outside of it. That's what it'll look like. And we may square that up a bit against the anvil here with this rubber mallet. But for now, let's get all of these bends, and hopefully it's not going to be so difficult after all. So what I did here, which I'm noticing, let me get a pointer. So I first lined it up right to the peak of the 90, or the 45 rather, where the 45-degree cuts meet. Which, yeah, this is going to be a 90. So right at the tip, that's where I first put the vise. Started to apply some pressure. And then once I feel that it's getting a little tough, then I move the vise out a little bit. So I moved it just about, say, less than a 1/4 inch. Keep it going. Move it out just a little more. Seems like on the 3rd time coming out, that's when it actually makes it. So this cut was a bit weird, but hey, this is going to be the underside, so nothing to worry about. Alright, there we go. We have our 2 bends. Now we're going to go ahead and make our last one. And I'm already seeing that I am going to have to do some kind of aligning with it or forming it with the mallet, but that's fine. This is a right angle that I can easily replace without a problem, and it's not costing me one bit because this was leftover material. So there we go. It looks like we are gonna have to do a little bit of aligning, but that's pretty square. I'm gonna call it square enough to let it fly like that. So there we go. Let's see if I can bring the camera up a little bit. There we go. So that's what we're gonna have right now. Obviously there's some elasticity in the aluminum, so it's trying to push outward, but it does fit the shape properly. So now I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera around and try to do some fitting with the battery.